Hello, I'm Vern Grubinger. I work with the University of Vermont Extension and I'm on the Dummerston Farmland Protection Committee. And we're here at Bunker Farm as part of Dummerston's first ever Open Farms Day, where you will get to see 7 great farms that we have in this town. Some farms are multi-generation and have been around for many, many years, and others are brand new. It's an exciting time in agriculture in Vermont with all this interest in local food, and towns like Dummerston stepping up to the plate to help protect their local farms and all the benefits they bring to town, from our working landscape to wildlife habitat, ecosystem services, and keeping our local property tax rate down, because farms don't demand a lot of services and they take up a lot of land. So I hope you enjoy the farms that you'll get to see today and the great people that are running them here in Dummerston, Vermont.
Hi everybody, we're here at the Scott Farm on Dummerston Open Farm Day, and right to my right is Zeke Goodband, who manages this beautiful bucolic farm. So Zeke,
yes,
the Scott Farm is well known for the many, many apples it produces. What other fruits and vegetables do you produce on the farm?
Well, we grow blueberries, we grow gooseberries, we grow quite a lot of quince. We grow pears, peaches, we grow lots of different types of plums, and we grow medlars, which are an old fruit from Europe originally.
Interesting. And what do you produce in the winter?
Prunings. I prune all winter.
Ah, okay. Do you do any maple sugaring on the farm?
We lease some trees to some neighbors that they tap trees, a couple thousand taps.
And what type of heirloom apples do you grow here?
Well, we grow ones from all over. European heirlooms, we grow American heirlooms. We've got quite a collection that spans quite a lot of territory.
Now, I've been here, I've had all those incredible heirloom apples that are so beautiful. Sometimes I'm afraid to eat them because they're so beautiful. I just want them to stay in my bowl. But why heirloom apples?
Well, you know, I grew up, my father had a Red Delicious orchard, and, you know, that was all we had. So we were very thrifty, so we just ate our way through those Red Delicious until they were gone, and sometime in July or August. And when I grew up and went out on my own, I found some orchards that had, you know, blue apples and black apples and russeted apples, and it was like going into a cheese store for the first time in my life after I'd grown up eating Velveeta and cheddar cheese. So there's so many flavors and textures and colors, and there's so much history behind each variety. That's what really caught my attention. That's why I've been doing this for most of my life.
Now, I have attended your wonderful lectures about the various apples, which is so interesting. Each one of those apples has a real history.
Yes, they do. Yes.
And preserving that is remarkable.
Right. Something that I like about it is these varieties all originate from a seed just growing into a tree, but the way you preserve the characteristics of that variety is to take a cutting from that tree and then you pass it on to someone else and you graft it. So some of these varieties that are a couple of hundred years old, it's been almost like an heirloom quilt. It's been handed down generation to generation. So I took cuttings from these orchards in Maine that had been started in the early 1900s, and right now what we're doing here at the farm, we have a young person that's working with me now, so I'm passing information I know on to another generation.
Oh, that is wonderful. So you have an intern. You have an intern program here.
It's not an intern program. It's an understudy.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful. And for our viewers, where can you buy your wonderful apples?
Well, I think the best place is to come here.
Absolutely.
You get to talk to me, and I might, if I'm in a good mood, let you sample some fruit. But Hannaford's carries our fruit, the co-ops in Brattleboro and Putney, and Walker Farm sometimes has them. So, you know, about 85% of our crop stays in Vermont, and we send a little bit out to Northampton and the Boston area. So we pretty much go any place in Vermont and find some of our fruit.
Oh, that's great for us to know that. I didn't realize that all the supermarkets carry it as well.
Yeah, not all of them.
But the local ones here.
Yes, Hannaford carries some.
So Zeke, sustainability is a difficult subject for farmers, thinking about how is this farm going to sustain itself. Have you thought about that? Where do you see the Scott Farm moving forward, and how will it be sustainable in the future?
Well, this new young person that we've taken on, I'm training her with what I know about the business, so that should keep us going a little further.
So an understudy.
An understudy, yes. And we're also growing new trees to replace the older trees that we have. We're expanding a little, and we're diversifying with other fruit crops, trying to find value-added products that we can make from our fruit. And we're trying to develop a good retail business, so that should help us into the future.
Oh, that's wonderful. So when you say added value products, give us some examples.
Well, our cider is highly sought after. It's a very unique product. We have a cult following for it. We're looking into maybe dried products, or of course the hard cider business is booming right now, and we grow quite a few varieties for the hard cider trade.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate this, and thank you for the tour of the farm. And visitors can come here every day from what time to what time, Zeke?
Well, they can come anytime they'd like, but
oh, that's really nice.
Daylight hours, pretty much.
7 days a week?
Sure.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much for coming.
So here we are at the New Leaf Farm with Elizabeth Wood, who created this amazing place that people just love coming from afar to her CSA. So Elizabeth, what is a CSA and how does it work?
Okay. Well, CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture, and it's a system where people join to support the farm for the season, and in exchange they get a selection of that farm's products each week. And this is the traditional model CSA, so that means people are sharing the risks of the growing season and the bounty. If something overproduces, they get more of it. If something underproduces, they get less of it. And generally they get a very good deal as a result, but we try to plan for excess. So even in a kind of a difficult year like this, we do have a lot of veggies. Just maybe not as much selection as if it were drier. Yeah.
So, Elizabeth, what organic practices do you use on your farm?
Let's see. Yeah, organic it's not just about not using a certain pest control. It's also like incorporating compost and cover crops and crop rotation, as in, you know, people wonder why things are never in the same place in the fields from year to year, and that's to help control plant diseases and make the plants healthier so that they can resist the things that would otherwise probably kill them.
So Elizabeth, you have a very interesting story. As a young woman, you chose the field of agriculture, which is not an easy thing. And I understand that women in agriculture has really risen, and there are more and more women who are running farms. Can you tell us why you chose agriculture, and where do you see women in agriculture?
Why, because I'm crazy. Let's see,
How old were you when you started? You were very young, right after
out of college.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I was like 23 or so. Yeah, and I guess I started apprenticing on organic farms, CSA farms, while I was in college, and I'd always liked working outdoors and plants and animals. but I guess until I saw those farms and got to know them, I hadn't really thought of it as something I could possibly do for a living. And I like the challenge of it, you know, just every day there's some kind of obstacle or little problem to overcome and figure out, and then having a tangible end product is always really exciting. I mean, so many people nowadays, you can't really tell what they created from their jobs, you know? And so, you know, it's very satisfying to have something that's healthy for people, and it's a healthy lifestyle for me.
And so there are more women who are farmers today than ever.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, you know, I do meet a lot of young women and have people working here who are, you know, young women who want to get into this. And I think, you know, there's probably something empowering about saying, you know, I can, you know, physically do this work. I can create something. We learn skills that we're not necessarily taught in our daily lives before we start farming. And that's exciting too. So, yeah.
Well, that is wonderful. It's very nurturing, and I'm sure very challenging as well. So, Elizabeth, thinking of sustainability, every farmer thinks of this. How is this farm going to stay sustainable? And where do you see your CSA New Leaf in the future?
Yeah, you know, I guess my main goal is to be able to keep doing what I'm doing, and the support of the CSA members is just absolutely essential to that, and that's what makes me feel like I can keep going from year to year and, you know, keep putting back into the farm what it's going to need for the future, both in terms of the soil and infrastructure like greenhouses and things, that just to kind of keep making it better and always trying to overcome problems that we had, like drainage from all the rain, that kind of thing. So what for the future? I don't, you know, I get excited about little things like trying to grow things through the winter and whatever, but I don't foresee getting much bigger. I just want to be relevant to the local community and something that people can come and personally relate to. Yeah, so I like being at the 100-member scale. I think it's good, and you know, just kind of looking at lengthening the growing season, because that helps definitely with environmental sustainability, people not getting their food from far away. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth. You're a real treasure for Dummerston.
Thanks.
Well, hi everyone again. We're on the Miller farm with Reed Miller to my left. And gosh, it's such a beautiful spot. Being a neighbor of the farm, it is one of my favorite places on this earth. And my family feels the same way. The Miller farm has a great deal of history. Reed, since you produce everything on the farm organically, what does organic mean, and how difficult is it for farmers to grow vegetables and fruits organically?
Well, a brief history as to how we got here. In the mid '80s, the state of Vermont, University of Vermont, did a survey amongst all commercial orchards in Vermont and found that we had the lowest inputs of all orchards. And that's a statistical information. And the Chinese government found out about what our record was and hired me to consult for them back in the early 90s. So when I was in China as a consultant, I toured a lot of their grounds, from everything from strawberries to apples. And when I came back, I realized that the thought process, the paradigm that I worked on might not have been complete, even though at the time before I left I thought it was. And so when I came home, I thought, if they can do it, then why not? And so that was if I hadn't been doing something entirely different on another planet, which is how I refer to the Chinese agriculture at that time, I wouldn't have stepped over to what I was sure was the best way to do it at the time. And so what I thought was we were climbing a ladder. You take information, you take experience, and you climb another rung, and you move upwards. What I realized was, within a few years, was that I had to go all the way down to the bottom and start over, again, thinking of the entirely new, broad scope, different tools. And so that was how it came to be. It is the researcher in me that has let me take a problem, identify it, and then solve it with the tools that I had. And so that's how we get here, and that's how we're, to this day, committed to what we do. We're going to celebrate our 20th certified year next year on apples. We've done rhubarb much longer, but apples will be 20 years.
So you're quite a revolutionary in the organic.
No, I don't think so.
For this area.
Well, to my knowledge, in the Northeast, we're the only full-blown farm orchard that has made that commitment. And as I say again, is in part because there's a lot of research that has to be done to find out what works and what doesn't work. And we put, both in terms of inputs and in terms of losses, millions, and there's a plural on the millions of dollars to do what we do, sometimes successfully. Now, this year we have 20% of a crop. Last year we had, on a per acre basis, the largest crop we've ever had. So one of the things that we've learned how to do is big, small. And so it's not an ideal business model, but it's one that we've adapted to over the years, big, small. And you take a year like this, we do a lot of other things to augment what we do.
So what does certified mean?
Certified means that we actually have inspectors that come into the farm every year and look at our records and walk our fields and make sure that everything connects. We on our own have also gone past the certification. For the last, I mentioned we've been 20 years next year. For the last 19 years, we have also done independent testing of our fruit. In other words, because there's question marks about how do you do it, and we've always known that that was going to be the case. We actually spend more money to have fruit tested both off the plant and off the shelf to show that it is in fact certified than most people do to have their papers run through. So we go above and beyond, partly for our protection and partly for information.
Well, that's amazing because it would have been easier for you to continue in a traditional mode and grow your fruits and vegetables.
Well, at the time of when UVM came through and did this, we actually had my yield, my 10-year average was double the state on tree fruit. And so when the Chinese government hired me, I actually thought I was pretty good at what I do. When you have lower inputs by anyone else by 20% and your yield is double the state average, I had no idea what I was getting into. No idea.
Wow. Well, you definitely have done an incredible service to the community with your new practices in agriculture. So Reed, everyone knows that the Miller Farm is famous for its apples. What other vegetables and what else are you growing? Because I know as of late you've extended with your children in raising other vegetables and other things on the farm for added value.
Well, again, it comes down to last year we had veggies and we didn't do much with them, and I told my daughter Ruth, she says, you know, Dad, you're not doing a very good job with your vegetable crops. And I said, Ruth, we have a very nice fruit crop. I said, I'm not going to step over a $100 bill to pick up a one. And so we didn't do a lot with veggies, and we brought all that fruit in. In my lifetime, it's the latest we've ever picked apples. We were well past the freeze mark. We picked apples into the 25th of November. And what we did with that extra fruit is we made a lot of vinegar, juice for vinegar thereby. And when I say a lot, we were buying a 1,500 gallon tank every other week, all winter long. And so again, I knew going in that there was a chance we wouldn't have a lot this year, and it's coming this big in the small crop. We took this great product we had in apple cider vinegar. We had an opportunity just to make a lot of it. That's what we did with our overages last winter, and the market for us is growing, and that product is something that we're selling probably not quite a half a pallet a week. So even though my fresh fruit is off this year, between maple, between vegetables, between all of those other things, we hope to float the boat and get through to the next season. And mainly we just learn how to keep our cool. This farm has seen from one year to the next a $700,000 to $800,000 difference in cash flow. That's really hard to get through. And the way that we do is, as I described, but more importantly, from an emotional standpoint, we just know that some way we will. And so if I teach my kids anything, it's just you'll be okay. Just, buck up and you'll find a way to get through it. Don't let the equation ride you. It's your job, it's my job to formulate the equation, not the other way around.
So, Reed, I noticed every year I look forward to the peaches, local peaches.
Yep.
What happened this year?
Well, this was one of those years, and one of those years, to give you our experience with peaches and small fruit strawberries dates back to pre-Civil War. And so we've been raising stone fruit since the late 1800s, mid to late 1800s. And during that period of time, we've learned a number of things. One of the things that we've learned is where the Vermont banana belt is. And as you and I sit here, I can tell you from having the road, which is fairly lengthy, and having farms on both ends, that there are places on one south end we will plant peaches and places on the north end which we won't. The temperature that picks the crop of peaches for the next season is actually about 16 below. It could be a little colder, a little milder, depending on the weather surrounds it at the time. And what that does, it actually freezes the flower bud on the plant in the wintertime. And then most varieties, except for a few, will come through and they'll regrow and they'll have potentially another crop of flower buds for the following season.
So when we have a light winter, we can be assured.
No, you can't be assured of anything. But in our history, we've only reduced the crop size of peaches to spring frost one time. It's always been winter kill, and the average is 3 out of 5. We thought it was expanding a little bit. We thought we were growing more peaches. Now that doesn't mean that you'll have 3 perfect crops out of 5. You might have 3 goods and a small, but the ratio is 3 out of 5. And I would like to say that I thought it was changing, but it hasn't let me down yet. So that's based on generations of information. The other thing we've done here, when I say that we're partly research-based, we're the first farm in Vermont to use row cover on strawberries back in 1977. I didn't know that. It was something that we were told by UVM Extension. I actually, as we speak, have...
what is that?
Well, row cover, basically, it's something we use to either winter protect or to force strawberries to coming into flower early. The other thing that we've done here is that we're responsible for the health spouts, which are all throughout the tapping region. Dan Crocker did all the work, but the idea came from me, from this farm. The other thing that we're doing now and have for a number of years is we're doing peach breeding. And it's not because I got up in the morning and said I want to make a new peach. It's just we planted some pits and they come up and they're good or they're not good. So there's a whole lot of extra things that we do, partly because we have the interest in doing it. And that's one of the drivers. When something doesn't work, we have scab on the apples, or we have no apples, or something fails, we look at the equation and say, well, wait a minute, 30% of the apples did look good, so how come we can't get the 70% to look like the 30%? And that's the way you say, well, partly yes, and you just keep working the equation and you find out how it works.
That's very interesting. One more question. The Miller Farm is the oldest continuous farm. Where do you see this farm going in terms of sustainability in the future?
Well, that actually is in part up to the next generation, one of which is currently here, and my son Will, I guess, would be the bearer of the torch. Ruth is here. Martha shows up sometimes, my oldest. And Will is actually headed to the West Coast to help with a Washington apple harvest with a friend of mine. He and I were roommates when I was working nursery, and he has a big farm out there, so he's going to learn some things from the Washington standpoint of view. The potential is there. The rules, in some ways, are still the same. we know that we have more extremes. And so what we have to do is build a system that allows us to continue farming with those extremes. It means the possibility of covering things like sweet cherries and apricots and things. It means a lot more capital expense on our part. But basically our attitude has to follow in and understand that there's a real problem with weather, and we either embrace it and try to modify what we do, or we will be beaten. And so, at least as far as this generation goes, we have opted to try to find ways through and around. You know, and we have such a long history of doing all kinds of different things. One of my forefathers bought a piece of land with a crop of carrots back in the 1800s. Now, you wouldn't visit us and say, you're a carrot grower, and I'm not particularly, but we will find that piece. And, you know, when I mentioned that we're large last year, small this year, and we have an entire CA room, as well as the main packing house, as well as all of these tanks in the front door are all full of vinegar, which is lots and lots of money. Mm-hmm. And we'll use that to help us get through that dip. And so that's it. Basically, it's attitude. Attitude and adding value to what you're already producing. So when we go out into the field, I don't, except for something like spinach, which we grow a lot of. You know, we have 3 acres of fall spinach in the ground, and most of our greenhouse production will be for fall and winter spinach. We try to do something that has on top of. For example, our butternut squash crop is fresh crop plus peeling plus any rots or something like that go to the pork. So if you come in and buy some of our organic pork, you are buying peaches, you are buying sweet corn, you are buying butternut squash and pumpkins. You know, we didn't necessarily grow it for them, mm-hmm. but they got the overages or they got something that lost value. So we try to not have ourselves holding on by our fingernails for one item, mm-hmm. because the averages generally don't work well when that mm-hmm. happens. We have to have breadth. Mm-hmm. But mostly it's psychological. And, you know, my help this summer was wondering, what are we doing this fall? And you know, right now they're working overtime, and I had a fellow that said, you know, my wife says I got to have time off because, and so we find a way, we find something that someone needs that we have the ability to grow, and we go chase it. Well, I want to thank you and the Miller staff and your family for, it's a hard, bumpy road being a farmer, and I just want to thank you for all you're doing and your perseverance. Well, thank you, and thank our customers for supporting what we do as well. Thank you.
So here we are again at the Dummerston Open Farm Day, and we're on the Bunker Farm with Noah Hoskins. His partners are busy on the farm chasing pigs or in their beautiful vegetable gardens. They've got so many chores to do, but I do have to tell you, this is such a beautiful farm. I've been visiting and walking these paths here for years and years, and just to see this new energy, exciting new energy, and how beautiful everything is. I mean, the amount of work you guys have put into it is astounding.
Oh, thank you.
So, no, I'm just curious. What brought you to the Bunker Farm, and what interested you in farming?
I grew up in Putney originally, so just on the next town up, and my family had a small farm there. I've been doing agricultural work for my entire life, and I think that it's a wonderful and fulfilling path to undertake. Of course, there's financial challenges, but we're seeing such tremendous shifts in that area that there's real hope for small-scale agriculture, particularly in areas like Vermont. The Bunker Farm is a local landmark. It's a historic farm that's been in production for over 200 years and needed a fresh shot of life. So when we my wife and my sister-in-law and brother-in-law became aware that it was coming on the market through Vermont's Farmland Access Program, we didn't hesitate, we didn't think about it, we said we got to go for it and see if we can make it work. We're very happy to be bringing our experience and our our understanding of different ways
And enthusiasm.
enthusiasm of different ways of farming and different ways of doing agricultural and silviculture and forestry, as well as horticulture onto this property, and to really work to meet some of the needs of our community.
So I understand that the Vermont Land Trust Farm Access Program really helped help you get on this farm. Can you tell us about that and how you got involved in it?
Absolutely. The Vermont Land Trust not only is seeking to preserve our landscape, but it's seeking to preserve our working landscape and really keep working farms alive, as well as finding ways for young people with an interest in agriculture access to land, as it says in the name. One of the tricks of preserving land is that as prices go up, the ability to utilize the land, utilize the working landscape for agriculture becomes smaller. The way the Farmland Access Program works is the Vermont Land Trust identifies properties that have agricultural potential, historic properties, working farms that need a change of ownership, and they make it possible for these properties to come into conservation with new ownership. The conservation easements that are held by the Vermont Land Trust are offset by grant money and loan money from the VHCB, as well as the federal government. So the grant money is used to offset the cost of the property, allowing young people such as ourselves who might not have the financial resources to purchase a piece of land that is large enough to become a viable working farm, and to allow us to invest in the land at a rate that's affordable for agricultural purposes, as opposed to development or other ways of making profit off land.
And I understand you had a very interesting business plan that everyone still speaks about. And from what I see here, the amount of work you put into it, are you above the projection in your business plan?
Well, the business plan is essential. So the Vermont Farmland Access Program asks aspiring farmers and aspiring landowners to submit a business plan. So we submitted a business plan to the Land Trust that was really designed to achieve two purposes. One of which was to capitalize on the four of our differing experience and strengths, and the other of which was really to meet the needs of Dummerston and southern Vermont's growing community in terms of agriculture. So we looked very hard at finding products that we felt weren't being produced in size, or that might benefit the community here. The work that the Vermont Land Trust is doing to keep our open and working landscape from the pressures of development is really incredible. Their vision for our rural sense of being is a wonderful thing, and something that all Vermonters should be very thankful for, at least in my opinion. In this case, of course, it's worked out in a very personal way for us, but our understanding of who we are as Vermonters is so deeply linked to our landscape and the work that's done in our small farm industry. And the work that they're doing to protect that and prevent the pressures of development on our landscape is a wonderful thing. The town of Dummerston, of course, also has a very forward-thinking town plan. And the agricultural committee that organized the farm tours today, or helped organize the farm tours today, and that we're benefiting of the dinner tonight, has really thought deeply about what it means to have a working landscape, and why it's important to put our energy, both as producers, as consumers, and as residents of Dummerston and Vermont, to put our energy into recognizing how important the landscape is, not only for our economy, but also for our sense of being, our sense of identity, for our children's understanding of themselves as Vermonters, and really setting that as the preservation of that as a priority. We feel so fortunate to have the chance to work both with the Vermont Land Trust and also with the town of Dummerston, with these two groups that have really thought deeply and are really making these efforts to protect and preserve what's so important to all of us.
It's very true, and likewise for myself, being the founder and executive director of Strolling of the Heifers, the reason for all that is that the farms is what anchors us. It preserves our culture, a very unique culture that is hard to find anywhere else. And that culture is grounded in our local farms. And that is why we all love living here. And that's why we have to preserve the farms.
Absolutely.
So getting back to your farm, I know that you grow many things here.
Yes.
And can you tell us about the various things that you're growing, and also with the growth of the various things that you're growing, talk about the sustainability for the farm.
Absolutely. So we do have a diversified portfolio. One of the tricks to meeting local need as one of our primary goals, and finding a way to be useful in local markets, is that specializing in one item and mass producing that item for wholesale could easily flood the market. So we're trying small-scale growth on a number of different lines. We've divided our business plan into 5 separate pieces, 5 lines of operation. One of which is local pasture-raised natural meat. One of which is forestry products, including maple sugar. We have a vegetable line. We have annual and perennial flowers. And then we have our education and community outreach efforts. We feel that these different lines all support each other, as well as allowing us to network with different members of the community and meet different needs. We're going to see, as any business does, we're going to see fluctuations in each of these areas. The idea is that we haven't bet the entire enterprise on one single thing. As we see sort of dramatic supply shocks in various parts of agriculture, in many ways we are protected from some of those shocks by having many different interests.
So your educational arm, I noticed walking on the farm that you have interns here.
Yeah. Yes, we do. So we do have a summer intern from Hampshire College. Anu's been here for the summer, working very hard. We host school groups. We've had groups here both from Putney Central School, from Landmark College, from the Putney School, and other places. We're having visitors, and we're working at expanding our efforts into both education surrounding agricultural history as well as agroecology. As I said earlier, the working landscape is so much a part of our students and our children's identities and understanding of who they are as Vermonters, that allowing opportunities for them to come and be in the land and be in the gardens and be in the barns and to see a little bit of why our agricultural history is so important to who we are is a very important part of our mission.
And sustainability for the farm?
Sustainability for the farm. So we have designed our business plan not just as a series of numbers in a spreadsheet. We certainly look at the financial side of things. But when we designed our farm business, we did it with very close eyes on this property. And our goal was to match our production goals, our stocking goals for animals, and the other aspects of our business plan very specifically to this property in a way that would make sure that not only would soil and forest health be improved and maintained, but that it would allow our business to grow in the way that we'd like it to, keeping the health of the property and the health of our business hand in hand, because the two are inseparable.
Well, Noah, I want to thank you on behalf of our Dummerston viewers and residents and all the viewers, as a young person taking this on and persevering and continuing the life of the Bunker Farm, which is just so gorgeous. I just hope that other people can come and visit, and you're open when?
We're open every Saturday, and then in the afternoons after 3. And we are so proud and excited to be the new stewards of this property. And we would love to share with any of your viewers or anyone who would like, if they can come on a Saturday afternoon, we can give them a tour and tell them in greater detail about the different aspects of our business and our farming philosophy.
Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
we just got to the Walker Farm on Open Dummerston Farm Day, which is hopefully will be an annual event. This is the first one. And with me is Jack Mannix and Karen Mannix, who I've known for years. We've raised children together.
Exactly.
And I remember when you took over the helm in 1973, and look where you were.
We're still here.
You're still here. So how was it then, and did you even think that you'd be standing here with all these amazing greenhouses and so forth?
Well, remember we were in our 20s, so we didn't do much thinking at all at that time. But, you know, no, we had no vision of really what it would evolve to. We were just really happy to be on the family farm and being able to continue the tradition, because, like I was saying before, it's been in my family since 1770, and I dragged Karen up here, and she was happy to settle in with my grandfather. I took care of him for a few years, and tried just about everything that we could think of: bees and cider and milking cows, and we finally settled on vegetables and horticulture.
And now you have 22 greenhouses.
Yeah, we just ordered number 23.
Really? And what are they used for?
Oh, don't tell Karen.
Karen, do you know about this?
I just heard. I'm not surprised.
So what we have is about half that we use for horticulture, and about half that we have certified organic for vegetable production, so that we're able to start crops earlier, and with global climate change we're able to get more dependable crops, and then we're able to extend the season. And what do you have, Dad?
So Karen, I want to ask you, what does it take to be a successful garden center?
I think you have to be in the right place. We are blessed with a wonderful community who's into plants, fresh vegetables, and the whole farming thing, which is great. And you need to be willing to work 7 days a week, definitely. So nothing stops in a farm or a garden center. Everything always needs watering or something. What else is it?
Well, good staff. You know, we were able to start off by ourselves. And Karen, you know, when she was in her 20s, was the fastest picker around, able to pick a bushel an hour. And she's still pretty fast, but now we can't do the work that the 20-year-olds can do. So we have a great bunch of high school and college kids, and plus and a bunch of people that return year after year. So we generally hire 30 to 35 people during the summer.
Wow.
To help us out. Yeah.
That
makes
amazing.
a big difference, because and one of the big things that has changed, and I owe a lot of it, I think, to Strolling of the Heifers, is the awareness of agriculture. Because the kids come now and they're not hoeing and thinking, oh, what movie am I going to tonight? A lot of times they're hoeing or they're harvesting, and oh, I better tell Jack about that bug. You know, I wonder what that is. And it's just, and they're talking about chisel plows and erosion and a lot of things that they weren't aware of that they may have picked up in Brattleboro schools through Strolling of the Heifers or farm tours. We see a lot more of those. And I think it's involved our community a lot more in our farm.
So, economically, Walker Farm is important to the town of Dummerston. Can you tell us about how you see how this venture is important to the town of Dummerston?
Well,
economic.
Yeah, even more importantly, it's economically important to us. But I think it's important to the community. And one of the things I will give credit to our governor, Shumlin, who was raised on organic fruits and vegetables, and that's why he's doing such a good job. He's seen what agricultural businesses can do for a community. Take Hardwick, for example. And Dummerston is almost as important as Hardwick, I feel. And especially to the southern part of the state, now we have such diversification in agriculture. But we employ a lot of people, and not only that economic benefit, but it brings in other restaurants, farm to table, and it brings in suppliers, like Black River, employs those people who distribute our goods, and we have a local distribution within Farm to Food that gets foods into hospitals and institutions and schools. So all of this has evolved around farms, and it's, I think, been sort of an anchor in the economic system, even through the recession. People eat 3 times a day, and they're not going to probably change that. Nobody's going down to 2. And
Plus we've got the tourist economy, that people coming up to the farms, the Scott Farm, and certainly here, especially in the spring when we have plants, we have people coming from New York City and Boston, and they're bringing money to this area, definitely. They don't just come here and go home.
That's right.
So we're very appreciative of that.
And also, you have a great, shall we call it an intern program, where you actually work with students who are interested in agriculture, or understudies, shall we call it?
Yeah, well, that's been, I think, one of the most satisfying things that we've done is that, and not everybody, but because not everybody's crazy enough to get into this full-time job, but we've had apprentices that, I wouldn't say apprentices, we pay them, but employees that have gone on to do their own thing. Andrew Topple at Clearbrook Farm, for one, and Chris Vincent, who was working with, used to work with Green Mountain Herbs. Just probably 10, 15, 20 people that have gone off and started their own farms and are making a living with agriculture. And I think one of the things that we've helped erase is the belief that farmers have to be poor. You can make a good living farming. You just have to work hard.
Yeah.
And you have to develop your marketing skills.
It's like any business.
Any business, right. And it takes 5 or 6 years really to get going. But, you work with the community, and as Karen said, the community's been super supportive of us. And you can use this as, so you're not going to be rich, but you're going to be satisfied.
So, where do you see the Walker Farm in the future in terms of sustainability? And what are you doing to prepare for that?
Well, with energy sustainability, we're working every year to reduce our energy costs, making greenhouses more efficient. We're switching to 93% efficient heaters instead of the old 65 to 70% ones we used to have. We're trying all the time to think of ways to use less diesel fuel, keep our cultivation under control, energy is one of the costs that we can work with. I mean, we can't lower the price of the seeds we buy, and we have to pay. We really make an effort to pay our employees a fair labor wage. So we try to hire good people that do a good job and are more efficient with the labor, and we try to increase our sustainability with energy as much everywhere we can.
And what about the future of the farm in terms of succession?
Well, we're lucky enough to have both our kids working for us, and a couple of grandkids that look like they might be interested.
They're only cute.
Our job is to keep it going for this generation, and their job will be to keep it going for future generations.
Well, this is wonderful. Thank you so much. And viewers, you have to come to the Walker Farm, and also you have a CSA that you extend the farming season.
One of the things that is important for a farm is to try to maintain a year-round workforce if you can. And so we have a fall-winter CSA, and then we also have a deep winter CSA, as long as we have some summer CSAs. And now we recently were fortunate enough to purchase the Elysian Hills Tree Farm, so we're able to keep some of our employees going longer up till Christmas with the Christmas tree. So it's all tying together really nicely, and we're really excited. And a lot of people should be retiring. We're looking for new ventures. So 65 is the new 64.
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, thank you so much, and really thank you for all the hard work you put into this farm. And I remember when they first took over, his grandfather would give you the key to go to the gas pump. And I just came to Vermont, and I couldn't believe that I walked into his house, he gave me the key, and I was able to get gas for my car. And then there were a few zucchinis that you guys had put out, and it was an honor system right on Route 5.
I just couldn't believe that. And here you are right now. Amazing. Well, thank you for all you do for agriculture.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. We're having a great time going from farm to farm on Dummerston Open House for the Dummerston Farms. And right now we're at the Mountain Mowing Farm with Randy Hickens sitting right next to me. And what a beautiful farm, Randy. Just amazing. Totally amazing. Randy, there are so many specialties on this farm. Can you tell us about your specialties and who are the customers that come and buy your wonderful products?
The specialties have changed over the years.
They constantly change.
The first one was maple syrup. We don't do that anymore. Lots of raspberries and blackberries, vegetables, and perennial flowers my mom specialized in. So it changes with the generations and the times. And right now our specialties are jams and jellies and pickles. We do a mail order business. We go to some farmers markets and other events. And
who are your customers?
A little bit of everybody. Yep, at the markets. It's amazing where they come from. The mail order, we ship around the world, it seems like,
now,
in every state.
Is it true that you were one of the first mail order business in Vermont?
I wouldn't say that, but they started doing mail order in
This is your parents,
my
Mary
parents
Frank.
in the late 50s with maple syrup. It's
I
kind of grown from there.
Huh. Wow, amazing. So where do you ship to?
All over. We have customers in every state, I think.
Wow.
Yep. And some in Europe.
What's your
Not many.
website's address?
It's only halfway there, so we really aren't doing a website. It's mostly, with our brochure that we send out.
Oh, I see.
Yep.
The old-fashioned way.
Yes.
Neat. And so, Randy, what is your vision for the future of the farm? And do you have any succession for the farm?
I'm not sure. I think it's going to evolve. Right now, we've scaled back to just a small operation. And hopefully it'll continue in some form. The kids are interested and they help out. The grandkids, we'll see what happens. There's always an interest in working the land and making the products. So yeah, we're optimistic.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And what hours are you open? Because there are a lot of folks who couldn't make it today but would love to come and visit.
Right now I've been doing renovations in the building. We don't have a retail shop. Hopefully we'll get that back going again. We do it at the market. If you stop by and I'm here, I'll gladly talk with you and sell you some jams and jellies and pickles.
Oh, I'm sure.
And things. Yeah.
They're excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. I've been coming to the mowing farm buying pickles, actually from Randy's mom and dad, since the early 70s.
Yeah. One of our early customers.
Absolutely. And I have fond memories of Frank and Mary Hickens. Frank was quite the entertainer and loved to tell stories and had a huge personality.
Yeah.
Anyway, where do you see farming in the Dummerston area in the future?
It's made an important change as dairy started going out. There was diversity in all of Vermont and other areas. Dummerston doesn't have much tillable agricultural land. The stuff we have out here is stony, so it's a little bit of
So
work.
it's very hard to
Yeah.
till the land.
Yes, and Mannix has done a good job, converting the old dairy farm and picking up the surrounding land, and that's what's making agriculture in Vermont grow is produce, value-added products, and it's every year it expands what's going on. Berries and apples and a lot of vegetables. You go up to Westminster and you just see all of the produce that's grown up there. They're wholesaling, and it's amazing to see that's been able to happen.
So you must have had an amazing childhood growing up on this farm.
Yes, there was a lot of things going on.
I am sure, and a lot of hard work, but a lot of fun.
Yep.
So, well, this has been great. What a beautiful spot you have here. The view is amazing. Your gardens are just incredible. I'm just looking at them over there. How many acres do you actually, at this point, farm?
We have about 4 acres in
Uh-huh.
production and about the same amount in rotation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is great. So, folks, come down to Mowing Farm. Randy's always around. He'd be happy to show you around. I highly recommend it. It's just a gorgeous farm.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Here we are at the Dummerston Open Farm Day at Elysian Hills with Mary Lou and Bill Schmidt, who have been the stewards of this farm. And Bill and Mary Lou, you recently allowed the land trust to come into your life, and you conserved the farm through them to Jack and Karen Mannix. I just wanted to ask you, what was the process for that, and how did you come to that point to be able to do that? I mean, that's very giving, but also very brave of you.
I think it goes back more than recently. We conserved the farm with the Vermont Land Trust back in the mid-90s, about 95 or 6. And actually, Bill had been with the Vermont Land Trust since 1983. And so we're not new to the Land Trust, and it's always been our desire and our wish to make sure that it does end up in the hands of the Land Trust, ultimately to make any final decisions that might have to be made. It's conserved for them, and recently we decided that there was no way we could continue with energy to continue with the tree farm, and we would need to find some new owners and stewards for the farm. And it was very appropriate when Jack and Karen learned that it was available for sale that they approached us, and then we connected them with the Land Trust, and it took off from there. So, and we're very delighted that of all people we could have had for ongoing stewards, that it is Jack and Karen, because they're such long-term farmers, as well as being great stewards of land, even in their own place presently, which has been historically in Jack's family. And while it's not historically in my family, I'm only the first owner after the Knapp family, which was in the Knapp family for 150 years. So we think that the Elysian Hills will now be in very good hands to go into the future and stay always a working farm.
So, you're true examples of farmers where it's all about the land.
It really is. It's all about the land. We feel very strongly about this place. It's called Elysian Hills, which means heaven or paradise in Greek mythology. Mary Lou gave it that name in the early 70s. We want very much for it to remain a working farm. It's mainly a Christmas tree farm now, but the Mannixes will be growing some other crops as well, like pick your own organic strawberries. They even have the dream of growing organic Christmas trees, which we'll be interested to see if they can make that happen.
How is it for you to watch the Mannixes, although it's very nice, but the trees are like your babies.
Well, for me, I think for both of us, it's a bittersweet feeling. Bitter because it means we have given up full responsibility in ownership of the property. When something has to be done now, I really need to check in with Jack Mannix, which seems strange. It's sweet because we know it's going to be looked after and taken care of in a good way. But it is full of mixed feelings. As I trained some of Jack's staff for example, to shear, to shape Christmas trees, I realized that what I know I learned over 30 plus years, and I can tell them technically how to do it, but it's going to take them a long time to get the feeling of it. So.
But you continue to live here, and so you will not have to move somewhere else.
Right. Part of the arrangement with them was that Mary Lou and I continue to live here through the rest of our lives, and when we die, we'll go to the burial site on the property, which now has 5 of our past dogs buried in it. So when we die, we're going to the dogs.
I love it. Oh,
Can't think of a better place to go.
That is wonderful. So if folks are interested in this process with the land trust, can you talk a little bit about that in simple terms?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the first step is to get clear on your own mind on what you want the future of your property to be. If you want it to stay intact, not get further developed, and it's at least 50 acres in size, or has some very special other qualities on it if it's smaller, get in touch with Joan Weir, who's a staff member for the Land Trust, Vermont Land Trust. She's located in Brattleboro. Her number's in the telephone directory. And she'll go over the options, the possibilities. Now, in our case, we donated a conservation easement to the Land Trust, gave up the development rights as a gift to the Land Trust. In the case of some farms, like the Bunker Farm or Sweet Tree Farm, the development rights for those properties were sold to the Land Trust. The Land Trust purchased them. And then there are combinations. It can be a partial gift, a partial sale, different ways it can be done. So, for starters, I think talk to John. Mm-hmm.
This is an incredible story.
Mm-hmm.
Right here in Dummerston, Vermont.